Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here with a Shakespearean sonnet appropriate to the Western world today, Western civilization. I waffle a bit on who to address it to. At first thought, I thought Britain. Then I thought, no, all of Western Europe. But then there's a clenching line which has to be addressed to the United States. So at that point, it's all of Western society. And the subject is our clash with Islam. It's sonnet number 11. As fast as thou shalt wane, so fast thou growest, in one time of thine, from that which thou departest. And that fresh blood which youngly thou bestowest, mayst call thine when thou from youth convertest. Herein lives wisdom, beauty, and increase. Without this, folly, age, and cold decay. If all were minded so, the times should cease, and 80 years would make the world away. Let those whom nature hath not made for store, harsh, featureless, and rude, barrenly perish. Look, whom she best endowed, she gave the more, which bounteous gift thou shouldst in bounty cherish. She carved thee for her seal, and meant thereby thou shouldst print more, not let that copy die. Thou shouldst print more, not let that copy die. I want to address that from the direction that Mark Stein comes. He's recently written a book called After America. He previously wrote America Alone. He has a theme that the birth rate in the West is one of the problems, one of the reasons that if Islam does destroy the West, we will be able to point to. We'll be able to say we weren't having enough babies. Now, maybe he's right in a very fundamental sense. If we never would have decreased the amount of children we were having, then we never would have, meaning the West generally, we never would have had such a desire to import workers, and those workers which came from the Middle East and Islamic countries never would have been brought to Western Europe. But you have to have someone to work the jobs, to pay the taxes, to pay for the health care for the older generations that are now, becoming geriatric and needing lots of health care. Maybe Mark Stein's onto something there. But a couple of lines further down here in sonnet number 13, I just want to read the last line. Dear my love, you know you had a father. Let your son say so. In other words, don't just cut off the generations. Continue to increase, continue to have children. And one more line from sonnet 14, the very end. And this is the line that we can address mostly to America, but also to the British. But Britain, as I think of it, is gone. It's history. It's gone by the wayside by at least a few decades, maybe by as much as half a century. The last great thing Britain did was to fight the Nazis. Then it dismantled its empire on American demand. So here's a line for Britain and for America and for Western civilization as a whole. Of thee this I prognosticate. Thy end is truth's and beauty's doom and date. Thank you, Shakespeare. If we let it go, may all of history forever damn our name. Thy end is truth's and beauty's doom and date. So, what's the solution? Well, on the one hand, maybe to have more kids. But on the other hand, the solution might be to allow people the freedom of religion insofar as they're not doing anything that violates individual rights. I think that's the ultimate answer. There's always this discussion going on in France and in Sweden and in the Netherlands and probably Germany and And certainly in Turkey, they decided long ago about the veil, about wearing a burqa or full face shroud. And in America, you can't do much about that. We might be able to make traffic laws against wearing it when you're driving, but you can't illegalize some sort of religious item. And ultimately, everyone's going to have to take the American view of things, or it's just going to get worse and worse, and there's just going to be fascism everywhere. So either people start putting up with stuff they're not very fond of, as long as it doesn't violate rights, and in conjunction with that, putting people in prison very quickly when they do violate rights. Either we do that, or you're going to have the violations of rights rampant, and maybe the state will be doing it, like in the case of outlawing certain religious clothing, or maybe the thugs will be doing it, like in the case of Europe today, where there are signs, for example, in Sweden, that you shouldn't carry cash because robberies are rampant in a certain area, or the fact that certain slums in London are run by Sharia law, and that police and fire engines and so on don't even go in those areas because it's too dangerous. So you're going to have violations of rights. How are you going to answer it? Are you going to put people in prison, or are you going to make laws that placate these people who are violating our rights? Or are you going to take what most of Europe seems to be wanting to do and violate rights en masse using the state by putting up religious tests? None of that's going to do any good. Like Benjamin Franklin said, if you want to trade freedom to get security, you'll end up with neither. You'll lose both. You don't get to increase one by losing the other. You do get to increase freedom by saying, I'll give up security. I'll give up the promise of being taken care of so that I can be free. But that's just not a popular sentiment today. So, have babies. I don't think that'll solve the problem. It's a bit late for that. And watch out for Islam. It's coming. It's right around the corner. It's already in your hometown in Europe. The chickens came home to roost in America on September 11th. But I don't think we're ever going to see the problems Europe has right now. Hopefully not. If we do, may every future generation curse us for eternity for allowing the great global prosperity of the 1990s to be smashed into a smithereens of sand monkeys and Allah Akbar. How's that for a statement for us to be familiar with? Allah Akbar. How many people in Britain know what Allah Akbar means and have never read the sonnets, which I just gave you a taste of?